JD Vance has asked the age-old question whether Jeffrey Epstein was working for Israeli intelligence, whether he was a Mossad agent. He did this live on Joe Rogan's podcast. It is probably the single most viral clip from that podcast and has some wide-ranging implications. Why would people think that Jeffrey Epstein is Mossad? Of course, why? No connection. Could there possibly be a connection? Well, Ghislaine Maxwell, who everybody who was close to Jeffrey Epstein says is the architect of the entire operation, the actual brains behind the operation. Here's her dad. Her dad got a state funeral and was buried effectively inside of a Mossad cemetery. These are photos of her dad's funeral in Israel, even though he was British. And died very mysteriously on his yacht. You know, the guys who were looking into Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were told that Jeffrey Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Well, Jeffrey Epstein has, in fact, created a little spy nest in his home in Manhattan. Israeli spies stayed Jeffrey Epstein for weeks in Manhattan. Jeffrey Epstein helped Israel sell surveillance states all across Africa. Jeffrey Epstein and Mossad, how sex trafficker helped Israel build a back channel to Russia amid the Syrian war. Jeffrey Epstein was constantly doing statecraft on behalf of Israel. Jeffrey Epstein helped broker Israeli security agreement with Mongolia. Okay, just preserve what he does. I actually asked Alan Dershowitz about this and said, you know, what about all these reports that he's Mossad? And Dershowitz says, oh, you know, there's that one time that he flew me to Israel and I introduced him to a bunch of Mossad.
Israeli intelligence agents used him just the way they used Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Maxwell. And, you know, you never know. One thing about intelligence services, they act in secret. So you never know. But I can't imagine any thoughtful intelligence service using a guy like Jeffrey Epstein, but it's certainly possible. If so, I didn't know anything about it. In fact, once when I was in Israel writing a book, he called me. He was in France, and he said, you know, I've never been to Israel. I don't know anybody in Israel. Could I come visit you for a day? And he did. He flew his plane, and I took him on a walk in the Shuk, in the Arab area. We had lunch with some prominent Israelis, judges, etc. He asked me to put together a lunch. And then about 9 o'clock at night, he got on his plane as he left. As far as I know, that was the only time he was ever in Israel. But who knows? He could have fooled me, too.
Well, there's that, of course. And then there's Bibi Netanyahu all over the Epstein emails, right? Here we go. Hope the ranch is a lot of fun. Great weather. Here's a photo of Bibi Netanyahu. Photo of a visit from Bibi Netanyahu. This has been redacted. LOL. Anyway, it's like a lot confirmed Jeffrey Epstein trained as a spy under Israeli Prime Minister, unclassified FBI report. So these are reports. This is stuff that has been reported right out. And Joe Rogan, also saying that Jeffrey Epstein tried to meet him, and that they tried to pull Joe Rogan into this whole mess. So anyway, the point is that JD Vance finally went directly at this question and said, yes, effectively, Jeffrey Epstein worked really closely with the Israeli government. Was he Mossad? Let's listen.
There's of course
well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country, or both. Look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends, he had Democratic friends. He had much deeper connections to the Israeli left of center than right of center. I don't know what that means.
He was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Exactly. He had, again, in America, he had friends across the political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy to me, because at that point he'd already gone down for at least one like sex abuse thing.
That was my position. I'll show you the emails.
Okay.
They're kind of funny.
Which
I
guest?
actually read them on stage.
You want to say? Okay, fine.
People can find it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the guy's already ruined.
Sure. But
dude, I Googled it and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, but this goes back to my original point.
But this is part of what he was doing, right? He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh-huh.
All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his power. That's when he hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal. Like, I mean, to your point, right? Even if you have some scumbags who are willing to introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017, there are a lot of Joe Rogans, or at least some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out that he's a predator.
A lot didn't.
And
that was really crazy.
A lot didn't, but some did. And my point is that would limit his influence. But if you go back to like the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is like the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era. And
because you think it was destroyed.
I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Right. So they were specifically going after him for underage sex. And they didn't look at the full picture of the operation.
They didn't even try to. They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that he said.
He was like CIA or something.
Yeah.
Right?
He said, I was told he was intelligence.
That's right. And yes, I've asked, were there documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's? And the answer is no. But if that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.
What is it like being the vice president? Like, how much access do you have to information? Because
I'll give you another conspiracy. So I have like effectively unlimited access to information.
Unlimited.
But I think that one of the things that I've learned about the job is you're doing so much on the day-to-day. Like, you're calling senators and trying to get them to pass a piece of legislation. You're meeting with staff about what should go in the housing bill. You're negotiating with the Iranians or the Qataris or the Israelis about something that's going on in the Middle East. And a lot of it, like the UFO thing, like I've said that I'm going to look into the UFO thing. And I've been saying that for a year and a half, and I haven't done it yet because I haven't had the time. And so some of this is like, you just have to have the time to actually punch through the walls and to like go to the gatekeepers and say, you have to open up that gate because I'm the vice president. And some of it is just hard to actually get to because I don't have the time to sort of focus on that one issue for any particular period of time. So the answer is you have unlimited access to information. The constraint is not people tell me no. The constraint is you're just so busy doing other shit.
So that was interesting. J.D. Vance effectively saying that the Trump administration, in a previous segment, mishandled the Jeffrey Epstein files, and then saying that Jeffrey Epstein did belong to intelligence and did have extremely high and close connections all throughout the American and Israeli government. And will we ever get the truth of all of this? Joe Rogan did, in fact, by the way, get solicited by Jeffrey Epstein. Very interesting, this. Joe Rogan fought off Epstein's advances to meet him. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, are you high? Emails have come out suggesting that it was scientist Lawrence Krauss. Jeffrey Epstein said, I want to be able to control Joe Rogan. It's an obvious op. very interesting to hear J.D. Vance talk about it. And does this, is it at its end? Probably. I think. Are you going to get anything more? You have Epstein fatigue? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comment sections. It's your boy Benny. See ya.